Greetings, cyberdogs and citizens of the internet, and welcome to a brand new series on the RENDOG channel from the wonderful early access world of Scrap Mechanic. During each episode of Scrappy Racers, we are going to be building a brand new racer right here in the Scrapyard workshop, and then we are going to be taking that racer for a test drive down this giant ass drag strip which stretches all the way to the end of the map. And during that test drive, we are going to be testing out our racer's handling, speed, and looks, and at the end of the episode, we will make a call together on a rating for our Scrappy Racer. And as this is a brand new series on my YouTube channel, it is going to be completely up to you guys to decide whether or not you want to see some more Scrappy Racers episodes on YouTube. So if you enjoy this episode and you want to see more, make sure you smack that like button, leave me a comment, share the video with your friends, and if we get enough love for this series, it will become a thing on YouTube. Well, my friends, without further ado, let's stop messing around and let's get freaking scrapping. Sit back and relax with a tasty ass beverage and crunchy ass snack. Let's play some Scrappy Racers! Welcome, scrap mechanics of the internet, to RENDOG'S workshop called the Scrapyard. I am so excited to be playing this game with you guys today. In the last 5 years or so, there have been very few games that have literally caught my imagination within the first 10 seconds of loading it up. And Scrap Mechanic, it's got me, man. I am addicted. I have literally spent the last 16 hours of game playing right here in the world of Scrap Mechanic, building this giant workshop and creating a drag strip that stretches all the way to the end of the map over there. And it's taken me about 16 hours or so to build the Scrapyard and to set up Scrappy Racers, this brand new series on the RENDOG YouTube channel. I'm super pumped, guys. This is going to be a super fun series. And I've been watching some Scrap Mechanic videos on YouTube, and most of them are basically just sort of gameplay of the game, showing you how it works. But I instantly got inspired when I watched those videos, and I instantly, for some reason, wanted to make racers and wanted to create a workshop where I would create different racers and then test them down a drag strip. I don't know what happened in my brain. It just kicked in. I wanted to do it, and that is what we are going to be doing in this series. This humble little vehicle that you see before you is known as the Scrapster. And in this episode, we are going to be making an electric version of the Scrapster as our very first build in Scrappy Racers. But before we get to all of that jazz, I thought that I would take you guys on a little tour of what I have created here in Scrap Mechanic. If you guys are wondering how I did all of this, don't worry your faces. It's all going to become much clearer as this episode progresses and as we get into some crafting. So welcome to the drag strip of Scraptopia. This is the stretch of road that we are going to be using to test out our Scrappy Racers. And as you guys can see, it is ginormous. It stretches all the way across the entire length of the map, and it gives us a great opportunity to build some really cool racers, try and make them as fast as possible, and speed them down the track at breakneck speeds, not only testing their handling, but also making sure that they look kind of cool, right? We want our races to look as sweet as possible. At the very end of this race course is a giant ramp, because of course we want to end each race with a bang, and that was a little bit of a anticlimactical bang, but hopefully when we build the electric version of the Scrapster, we will be able to do a better ramp than that. But as you can see, it goes all the way to the end of the map. We've got a ramp to hit at the end of it, which is absolutely awesome. And that is pretty much, oops, derp. Well, that's pretty much Scrappy Racers in a nutshell right there, guys. It's going to be a lot of derpage, a lot of speed, and a lot of awesomeness. Let's head back to the Scrapyard now to start working on our very first racer for today, and that is going to be the Scrapster E-Series. I think one of the things that has really impressed me about this game is that even though it is in early access right now, it is extremely stable and actually plays really well. I mean, just look at what I've been able to craft in early access. It's absolutely amazing, and it is so beautiful. This game is just one of the most beautiful games that I've seen in a long time, or beautiful sandbox games anyway that I've seen in a long time. And welcome to the Scrapyard, guys. Before we start working on the Scrapster E-series, let's just have a quick look around here. You guys can get a little bit of a look at what I've done. We've got some ventilation shafts. We've got some water anti-fire thingies in case something catches on fire in here. We've got some aircon up in here because damn, gets super hot when we are building cars. And we also got spare parts and tires and everything all around these shelves. Looks absolutely sweet, doesn't it? Now, this game is currently in creative mode. It's a sandbox game, just like Minecraft. And currently we can just use creative mode. So we have access to all of the different blocks that are available in this early alpha version. And I have been pretty much spending the last 16 hours of my life absorbing myself into this game and trying to work it out and trying to figure it out. And I think that I've got a pretty decent idea of how this works. So for our very first Scrappy Racer build, we are going to be making an electronic version of this little beauty that is called the Scrapster. And this car is basically the first car that I created in the scrapyard over there. It is a petrol-powered vehicle, and it's pretty cool. I love how the blue and the yellow works together. It's got front and back suspension, some light action going on, but it is very, very simple. I've been using this little vehicle to get around Scraptopia, drive up and down the strip, you know, get the ramp installed and do all the detail work. So we're going to try and make a more upgraded version of this little sucker, and this gives me a really good opportunity to show you guys how simple Scrap Mechanic is. I know that it looks really daunting and it looks really scary because it was kind of daunting and scary for me when I first started playing. But much like Minecraft, this game is actually extremely simple to get your mind into, or get your teeth into rather. All you got to do is just sit down and get busy doing it, man, and eventually you will figure out how it works. So hopefully I'll be able to show you guys a little bit of Scrap Mechanic awesomeness today. Well, here we go. We've got our lift, a hydraulic lift on which we can build our vehicles. This gives us an opportunity to get way underneath the vehicle if we need to lift it up and down to see how it's fitting and how it's working. So that is pretty cool. We're going to start with the chassis for our Scrapster E-series, and we're going to use the same blue bars, I suppose, that we used for the Scrapster over there. And check it out, man. We're just going to place it like this, and each block in Scrap Mechanic you can actually change the direction that it faces by pressing your hotkey. So pretty simple to install, and I think I'm going to try and make the Scrapster E-series a little bit longer than the Scrapster, and that's going to maybe give us a little bit more downward force because I think that our engine is going to be a lot more powerful. So this is the basic chassis for the Scrapster E-series. Next up, what we need to do is get our driver's seat installed. I like getting the driver's seat down first because it gives us an idea of what the vehicle is going to look like. Now we've got to decide, do we want the engine at the front or the back of the chassis? I think we'll put it at the front. So let's get our driver's seat down there, looking pretty cool. Now we have various different engines that we can use. We can use a gas engine, an electric engine, or a thruster, a jet engine. For today's episode, we're going to be using an electric engine for the Scrapster E-series. So let's get that installed in front of the driver's seat like that. Yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. So we got our driver's seat, we got our engine. If we open up this engine, you can see we can set a power level to the engine. Depending on the weight of the vehicle, you have to choose the power of your engine quite carefully. So if you have a very small vehicle like this, let me show you guys. If we pump this up to full, so this gas engine is freaking rocking, you can see that there's just too much power for the Scrapster. The Scrapster just can't take the power, man. There's just too much thrust going on. And that's one of the things that I really like about Scrap Mechanic is that it is quite physics-based. I don't know how true the physics actually are or how realistic they are, but there is definitely some physics going on in this game, and you have to be sort of mindful for that. So we got to make sure. Oh no, I've moved my my lift away. There we go. We got to make sure that we get the physics right on these little builds too. Okay, so this is looking pretty sweet. Next up, what we need to do is install the wheels. We're going to start with the back wheels, I think. And let's have a look. What blocks can we use for this? I think what we'll use is, why don't we use some shelf pillars? That could look pretty cool. Let's have a look. If we stick them like that, yeah, that's looking pretty cool. We're pretty much making an upgraded version of the Scrapster over there. So I'm going to try use some blocks that look a little bit better than the plain blocks on the Scrapster. Okay, move the driver's seat and the engine one block forward, and that's going to let us build the supports for our back wheels on top of the chassis rather than on the side. I think that looks a bit better, and we'll be able to use this space here for some exhaust action, I reckon. So that's looking pretty cool. Next up, we need to get the back wheels installed in this sucker, and I think that we might be able to do it this way. We're going to use pretty much what we used over there on the Scrapster. We're going to be using these I-beam corners, which look pretty cool, and I think we might have to use some shelf support too, because we're going to need to make this a little bit higher, I think. So we're going to raise up this back side of the chassis a little bit, and now let's install these little corners like this. Oops. Let's do it like that. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. And like that. And that is where we are going to be installing our off-road suspension. So we're going to be using big tires for the back of the Scrapster E-Series. So we're going to need some really nice big-ass suspension springs to be able to maintain that. And that's looking pretty decent so far. I love the way the back looks. That looks really nice. I love these blocks, actually. That's looking great. So next up, we want to get the wheels on this sucker. We're going to use these pipe corners, which I think work quite nicely on top of the suspension bars. So check it out. We're going to use our pipe corners to face outwards like that. That's pretty cool. Now, one of the most important things in Scrap Mechanic is the bearing. And the bearing is literally, does what it says on the tin, man. It allows you to put a wheel or anything on top of that bearing, and the bearing is going to be able to rotate. So if we come to our tire selection now, let's take out these big tires and get them connected to the bearing. Boom. And on this side too. Bam! Now our back wheels are installed, looking absolutely beautiful. Man, that is looking awesome, isn't it? Now we can work a little bit on the aesthetics of the back here. I think we could probably juice this up a little bit. And for this, I think we should install some... Maybe we should install, let's install some exhausts, I think, because that's what we've got on the Scrapster. So let's add a little bit of exhaust action like that. That looks pretty cool. Okay, so far so good. This is looking freaking great, man. I want to work a little bit more on the way that these exhausts look. Maybe we could do a little something like that. Yeah, baby, that looks sweet. Okay, I'm very happy with how the back has turned out. Although, we might want to do something with that. That doesn't look great, does it? We might be able to put something interesting in there. Maybe what we could do is use some of these wires. Let's have a look. How's this going to look? If we put the wires like that, oh yes, this might turn out really, really nice. Then we'll put them on top. Let's just rotate them like that. Beautiful. Now we can get our lights in there. We got a really cool light here that we can install. Check it out. We'll get these suckers like that. Boom. So pretty much the same as the Scrapster, which has two lights above the driver's seat. We've done the same thing, but I think it looks a lot more pimps with this cabling over here. Yes, that looks really, really sweet. Okay, so we've got our back wheels installed. Next up, what we need to do is get the wheels connected to the engine. And we're going to be using this connection tool to do that. Really, really simple. Once you have the connection tool in your hand, you can see all of these dots around here, right? And actually, these purple dots are confusing. So let me get rid of these. These are actually just here for aesthetic purposes, but actually let's get rid of them for now. I don't want to confuse you guys. Just realized that all of the spare parts in the scrapyard have dots when I got the connection tool in my hand. So please guys, try and ignore those dots and focus on the build that we are making in the middle here. Anyway, check it out. It's really simple to connect up our Scrapster E-Series. What we want to do is connect this engine to the back tires because we want the back tires to be thrusting our vehicle. So all we got to do is left click and drag the engine to connect to the tire like that, and do the same on that side. And then we just got to make sure that the tires are rotating in the right direction. This tire is actually rotating backwards, so we're going to change that to rotate in the correct direction, and in this way too. So sweet. The engine is now connected to the tires. Now what we're going to do is connect the driver's seat to the engine. So now the driver's seat is going to be controlling the engine, and now we're going to be working on the front part of the Scrapster E-Series, probably the most difficult part of the build actually, because this is going to be the steering. Let's see if we can actually do this without derping up too much. So far, loving how this is turning out, looking very, very beautiful. Oh baby, the Scrapster E-Series is looking absolutely awesome. I'm loving it, man. Anyway, guys, let's move on to the most complicated part of the build today, and that is going to be installing a steering mechanic for the E-Series. Scrap Mechanic has a little bit of work to do on the steering in the game, but I think that we can make it work by using a little bit of a trick. So check it out. I'm going to extend the chassis of the vehicle. I want it to be a little bit of a drag racer type feel to this particular build, and I think that by making the chassis a little bit longer than the original Scrapster, we will achieve that. And what we're going to have to do is use a bearing again, just like we used for the wheels. We are going to be installing a bearing at the very end of this chassis beam, and this is pretty much like the axle, I suppose, of the front steering mechanic. So if we install a block onto that onto that bearing, this thing that I just made here, this straight beam, will be able to rotate on top of will be able to pivot or rotate on top of that bearing. So that is how we are going to create our axle for the front drive of our vehicle. So check it out. What we need to do is pretty similar to what we did at the back. We need to get some suspension installed to the front wheels so that we can sort of handle the high speeds down the drag track over there. So what I'm going to do is just use these really cool corner beams to create like a bend on either side of our axle, just like that. And then let's lift this sucker up a little bit. We're going to install these racing or sports suspensions into the front. So these are going to go over here. And then once again, we are going to be using those pipe ends that we used at the back to connect our tires to the front. So let's get our pipe ends installed like so. I just hope that these front tires aren't going to be too low to the ground. But let's get our smaller tires installed. Now, these are actually called wheels. Let's get them installed. Oh, no, I've forgotten something. Of course, we've got to get the bearings on the end here so that those wheels can actually spin. So let's get our wheels installed like that. That is looking pretty good for the front. Pretty much exactly the same style that we have here for the Scrapster, but I suppose we need to keep some of the things the same, as they are the same model of vehicle, just this one is slightly upgraded, right? So let's just bring this down again, and now I can show you guys how we're going to connect the steering of the E-Type, or the E-Series, excuse me. So what we're going to be using is our connection tool. We're just going to drag a line from our driver's seat all the way to that bearing of our axle. Bam! And that is going to allow our vehicle to turn that axle over there. So now that we've got the mechanics and the chassis down for the Scrapster E-Series, we can work a little bit on pimping our ride, baby. My favorite part of Scrap Mechanic. Check it out, guys. I've got some pretty interesting stuff in my inventory right now. I'm thinking, why don't we create some intake ducts for our electric engines. So check it out. This pipe is actually going to be receiving air, like a radiator, I suppose, as the Scrapster is driving, and it's going to be pumping that air into the engine. Well, that's the theory anyway. We'll get another one installed on this side. So that looks pretty cool. And I reckon we could continue the build of our electric engine. Let's try use some bigger ones, actually. Yeah, that could work quite nicely. So check it out. If we did a little something like that, yeah, that's going to create like a little drag racer engine of some kind over there, right? That looks pretty damn sweet. And maybe what we could do is install some of these output pipes over here too. Maybe just one will do quite nicely. Just like that. Oh, actually, that doesn't work because the exhaust fumes are going to be going directly into the radiator intake of the engine. So that doesn't work. Let's try a couple of these nuts, actually. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's get some of these nuts in here, man. That looks pretty sweet. Okay, that's looking good, man. Now what we can do is install some light action in the front. Maybe what we want to do is have 2 spotlights like that. Yeah, that looks pretty sweet. And we got to get this valve on the top because that is pretty much what every Scrapster has on the front there. So that looks pretty cool. And we might be able to stick a little something on the front there. I wonder, is there anything that looks kind of cool that we can stick on the front? Maybe we just stick another one of these bolts on the front, actually. There we go. Nice. Well, that is looking pretty damn rad, I must say. Maybe we have a couple of outputs over here too. Or maybe what we can do is just do something like this, right? Yes, let's do that. That looks pretty cool. Oh, those are like fuel tanks. Yes, or energy cells, I suppose, as this is an electric version. Or these could hold water to cool the engine. Something like that, right? Oh, baby, that is looking awesome. Well, it looks to me like the Scrapster E-Series is ready for a test drive. Ladies and gentlemen, please prepare yourselves for the very first test drive of the Scrapster E-Series. Let's get this sucker fired up, my friends. We're going to open up the electric engine and let's set the engine to, I don't know, let's just set it to a low number for now, and we will do a little bit of pre-race testing on the test track. Let's get ourselves down into the racer's seat and let's have a look. Is our steering working? Yes, working beautiful. Listen to that electric engine pumping out the torque, baby. Looking awesome. Let's get onto the initial track. This little initial part of the drag strip is where we get to test out our engine. And right now, obviously, this engine needs to be jacked up a little bit. So let's pump this sucker up to maybe number 3, and let's have a look if there's going to be too much thrust for the Scrapster E-Series. Nope, that thrust is looking good. Things are looking good. Let's have a look. Beautiful. The Scrapster E-Series looks to be a lot heavier than the Scrapster original, so we could probably pump up our electric engine by another notch. Let's have a look. The front tires are coming off, but they do go down again, so that's good. Let's get all the way in there and just make sure that this vehicle is going to be safe to drive. So even when we take off, yeah, the tires lift off the ground, but it looks like they are staying down. The front tires are staying down. Ooh, wow, it goes much faster in reverse. And I'm supposing that is because it's got back-wheel drive, right? Oh man, yep. Well, we could try and pump the engine up by 1 more, but I have a feeling that the Scrapster E-Series isn't going to be able to take the full thrust of this electric engine. Let's have a look. Oh! Okay, yeah. We're not going to be able to go all the way up to the top. So this chassis design is going to restrict our electric engine to 90% capacity, and we are now going to take our position on the drag strip for the very first of the Scrappy Racers test. Ladies and gentlemen and scrap mechanics from all over the world, welcome to the very first Scrappy Racers Speed Test of 2016. Drivers, start your engines. DJ, burn that record. Let the Scrappy race begin in 3, 2, 1, go! Here we go, my friends. The very first Scrappy race of 2016. We are in the Scrapster E-Series Electric Edition, cruising down the drag strip. It is going pretty well so far. Handling is doing very well. Speed is pretty low, but the E-Series seems to be handling the road extremely well. Coming up at the end of this race is going to be the ramp, and we're going to be able to see whether or not the Scrappy Racer E-Series is going to be able to handle that. We're coming up to the finish line of the drag race, where we will stop the timer to see how fast the Scrappy E-Series got down the drag strip. And the Scrappy E-Racer has made it all the way to the end of the strip. There's only one more thing to do, and that is to hit this ramp with the vengeance. Can the Scrappy Racer get over it? Boom! Bam! Oh man! Dang it! Cyberdogs and scrap mechanics from all over the world, we've come to the end of the first Scrappy race of 2016, but you and I still need to decide whether or not this Scrappy Racer is worthy of keeping, or whether it should be relegated to the junkyard and forever forgotten. Well, I think that it was pretty good at handling. We got down the drag strip quite easily without any handling problems. However, it was quite slow and it didn't do a great job on the ramp, I must say. It does look pretty cool though. I really like how the build turned out. So all in all, on the Scrapometer, I'm going to give the Scrapster E-Series a 5 out of 10. However, there is a twist to this scrappy tale, my friends. The decision on whether we keep the Scrapster E-Series or not is going to fall completely in your hands. You need to give this bad boy a Scrapometer rating of between 1 and 10 in the comment section below, and if it gets an average of 5 or less, it's going to be relegated to the scrap heap. Well, that is it for the first episode of Scrappy Racers, my friends. My name is Rendog, and we have been playing Scrap Mechanic, And if you enjoyed the episode, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. And remember, if you want to see more of this series on YouTube, show this video some love. And if we get enough love, we will continue the Scrappy Racers series. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. And I literally cannot wait to see you all in the next episode of Scrappy Racers.